Are you totally new to selling on Etsy and a bit confused as to where to start? Or maybe you haven't even decided if you want to sell on Etsy yet and you just need some basic information and tips to know what it really takes to be successful selling on Etsy. Well, either way, I got you covered, friend, because today's video is an Etsy Shop for Beginners starter guide, and I'm going to be sharing 5 amazing tips to get you going on your Etsy journey. Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. If we haven't met yet, I'm Kate. I'm a wife, a mom to 3 awesome kiddos, an Etsy seller, and a business coach, and I'm here to help you start and scale your online business so that you can make a full-time income doing what you love. On this channel, I talk about all things entrepreneurship, online business, and Etsy selling, so if you're interested in any of that, you're in the right place. I know being a beginner selling on Etsy can be super confusing and overwhelming. There's so many things you feel like you have to research and you have to figure out. So I'm here to help you and just give you 5 things to get you started today. These are the 5 principles that I think are super important to Etsy success and 5 things that I wish that I had known and understood better when I first started. I also have a great resource I'm going to share with you in just a bit called Tailor Brands, which can literally simplify so many of these beginning steps for you. So make sure to stick around, watch the video all the way to the end to get all of the best strategies for getting started on Etsy. All right, let's dive right into it. So the first tip is to niche down. The word niche actually means a specialized segment of the market for a particular kind of product or service. So when we say niche down in business, we're talking about deciding on what type of product category you want to offer and honing in and narrowing down on just one specific type instead of trying to offer all of these different things in one shop. For instance, you might want to sell jewelry or you might want to sell spa products, but you wouldn't probably sell jewelry and spa products together in the same shop because that would be super confusing for buyers. They wouldn't really know what you specialize in, and it's just better to have one thing that you are the expert in. People generally assume that the quality of a product from a shop that specializes in one thing is going to be higher than a shop that offers just a ton of random different things. For example, let's say there's a shopper who is specifically looking for a type of candle they want, and they've narrowed it down to your listing for your candle and another person's listing for a similar type of candle. Now they go to both of the shops to see the shop as a whole. When they go to your shop, they see not only do you offer a couple different candles, but you also offer keychains and pillows and t-shirts and some digital downloads, and it's very scattered and they can't really get a good grasp on what your shop is all about. The competitor shop they go to, and it's all candles. Every single listing is something to do with a candle, and so they subconsciously assume that that shop is more of an expert because they're the candle people. This is what they do. So although it may seem a little bit counterintuitive because you may think, well, if I niche down too far, I'm narrowing myself into this one thing and I'm going to lose the potential of all of those customers out there. But really, if you niche down, you're becoming more appealing and more of an expert in that field for those specific shoppers. So niching down will actually help your conversion rate in the end. You may have heard the phrase, if you try to please everyone, you're pleasing no one. Well, that can be applied to selling too. If you try to sell to everyone and make a product for everyone, you'll end up selling to no one. Now, this isn't to say that once you've had success that you can't branch out later. I've known people that have started 2nd and 3rd shops on Etsy, all selling in a different niche. Okay, tip number 2 is to appear professional. So when Etsy first started several years ago, it originally began as kind of a place for hobbyists and people who like to make crafts to have a platform to sell their creations. It was really endearing for buyers at first because they would come on knowing that if they purchased something, they would be supporting a small business. It might be a struggling college student, or it might be a young mom who was trying to work from home, and they knew that when they purchased that product, they were directly helping the person behind that business. It was basically a platform for normal people to sell their crafts. Fast forward to today, and Etsy has grown by leaps and bounds, and they now have millions of shops on their platform. Now, don't get me wrong here. It's definitely still a place for the rest of us to be able to have a shot and an opportunity at doing what we love. But with the immense growth in sheer number of shops has also come skyrocketing growth in terms of professionalism and quality. These days, you just won't be making consistent sales on Etsy unless your shop appears totally professional and established. Now, my purpose in saying this is not to intimidate you, but I want to be real with you about what it really takes to be competitive and successful on Etsy. Now, the good news is you don't have to piece things together bit by bit like I did when I first started. There are so many resources out there available to help you make sure you're putting your best foot forward when it comes to presenting a professional business and aesthetic. One of my favorite tools for this is the sponsor of today's video, Tailor Brands. I'm mentioning Tailor Brands because they are such a valuable resource for new sellers. They offer everything you need to make your business appear professional. From logo design to print and digital business cards to domain and web hosting to forming your LLC. Once you create your logo, you can even order merch with your branding on it. These are some stickers that I got with the logo that I designed for myself on Tailor Brands, and I'm loving these to help me with branded packaging for my products. Now, having merch is definitely not necessary when you're first starting, but things like that can go a long way in terms of legitimizing your brand and leveling up your professionalism. Tailor Brands is basically an all-in-one solution for creating your business and making sure your buyers know that this is not just a hobby for you, that you are an actual business person who's selling quality products and not just homemade crafts. People feel safe and confident buying from established businesses. So with the help of resources like this, that's how your shop will appear in no time, even if you just started. I've linked Tailor Brands in the description box below if you're interested, along with a coupon code for 30% off, which is KateHayes30. So definitely check that out after you're done watching this video. All right, moving on to tip number 3, which is to build your photography skills. So the product category that you've chosen will largely determine what type of photos you have on your listing, but in general, there's kind of 3 different options when it comes to your photography. Number 1 is to use mock-ups that you purchase. Number 2 is to hire a professional photographer to take them for you. And number 3 is to do it yourself. I would think most of us Etsy sellers, when we first got started, tried it out ourselves. Some maybe successfully and some maybe not as successfully. It definitely took me a long time and a whole journey in photography to get to the point where I felt confident in having good listing photos. I realize it can be so tempting in the beginning to just want to rush. You want to get your shop live, you want to get your listings published, but if there's one area that I would really strongly encourage you to nail before you go live, before you publish anything, it's your photography. Your main listing photo is literally the make or break deciding factor on whether or not that shopper is going to click on your listing, whether it draws them in enough and stands out enough from all of those other listings, or just pass it by. You can literally research and do everything else in your shop completely right, but if your photos are not up to par and not appealing enough, your shop will not succeed. So I can't stress enough how important it is to invest time and energy into this area, learning, growing, and developing your skills. I've been on Etsy for 7 years now, and I have spent countless hours self-teaching through just free tutorials on YouTube, experimenting with different light sources and backgrounds and props and editing techniques. And if you could go back and see my original listing photos to the ones I have today, you would see the evidence of the journey I've been on with photography skills. So of course you don't have to worry about any of this if you just decide to hire a professional or use mock-ups, but this is just in case you're not ready for either of those and you want to try doing it yourself. I have a whole video where I go through suggestions on photography techniques that I use and skills that are really easy to master in the beginning. So if you're interested, I'll link that video down below. You can watch that right after this one. But here's one tip that I'll give you that has really helped me over the years, and that is to study other people's listing photos and to start to notice what elements of their photos are appealing and draw you in, and something that would cause you, if you were the shopper, to just skip right over that listing. Looking for things like, is it too dim or too dark, or is it overexposed and too bright and shiny looking? Are there weird angles? Is the image blurry or not quality or grainy? Is it too far away and it's not cropped in enough? Are there weird reflections off the background, or is the background really super edited and fake looking? The more that you develop an eye for these things and start to notice them, the more you can ensure that you're not making those same mistakes. Now, I'm not going to go into all the detailed photography tips. There are so many great free tutorials on YouTube if you just type in product photography for beginners or something along those lines. So I'd encourage you to start there, and I'll also link that video I mentioned below. Okay, tip number 4 is to proactively drive traffic to your shop. So here's where I find a lot of the confusion comes in for people. When you first start on Etsy, you think, wow, Etsy has this huge organic audience of millions and millions of shoppers. I'm not gonna have to do anything. I'll just list my products and bam, all those millions of shoppers will see my product and I'll start getting sales. But the tricky thing is the way that Etsy's algorithm works. So Etsy is a search engine, which means people go on and search for a specific keyword phrase, and the Etsy algorithm is really smart. It knows how to match the correct listings with that shopper's search query. It also knows how to rank those listings in terms of relevance for that specific shopper and show them the listings that are most likely to convert into a sale first. So with millions of shops and millions of listings on Etsy, we're not just gonna automatically get picked up by the Etsy algorithm and showed on the first page of results every time to every shopper. So this is where things like SEO, search engine optimization, and your photography and all of those elements come into play. But you have to understand that the Etsy algorithm works hugely on sales volume. There are a lot of factors that play into the algorithm and how it works, but in general, the more sales you get on a listing, the higher and higher up in the search results it'll move and Etsy will show it to the shoppers. So here's the key, and what worked for me is driving traffic externally. So I'm not depending on the Etsy algorithm or Etsy search really at all in the beginning. I'm assuming it's not going to pick me up, it's not going to show me. So it's up to me to drive traffic to my listings, to my shops, to do whatever I need to incentivize people to complete those transactions, to get those first few sales rolling in and get some traction and some momentum going. Then once you have some of that momentum going, Etsy's like, oh, look at that listing. It's making some sales. Let's show it more. But the question is, how do I get the first few sales? How do I drive traffic? So I'm just going to quickly run through some ideas of how you can drive traffic from an external source. I have a video where I go way deeper into this in case you're interested in the nitty-gritty details of each of these. I'll link that one below as well. But just so you have an overview of some of the different ideas, you can drive traffic from social media platforms like Instagram and Facebook. You can go onto Pinterest. You can start an email list. You can start a blog. You can collaborate with influencers. You can come up with a brand ambassador program, and you can pay for Etsy ads as well. So there's a lot of different things you can try, both paid and organic, to drive traffic and get those first few sales to get things rolling. And kind of hand in hand with this is what I mentioned before, giving people an incentive to buy. So not only do you have to put your shop and your listings in front of them, you have to give them an incentive, a reason to complete that transaction now instead of waiting for later. So a lot of times this can take the form of a really great discount or deal or promo code. The key to this in the beginning is generosity, being willing to give and willing to give a really good discount. You want to offer them something that's irresistible. And trust me, even if you feel like you're losing out a little bit on offering such a steep discount in the beginning, it'll be worth it because it'll help your listings to start showing up in the Etsy algorithm and the Etsy search results, which then in turn will bring you more sales at full price. And tip number 5 is to stay on top of current trends. So one thing you need to understand is that every product has a life cycle. So it'll start, it'll grow, it'll peak at a certain point, and then it'll start to fade out. So our job as Etsy sellers is to stay ahead of that trend, ahead of the curve, and to stay in the know about what's on the rise so that we can be offering products right when that trend or that product type peaks and is in high demand. And then going along with this is that we have to stay flexible and willing to pivot at all times. So you may have a best-selling product that's just selling all the time like crazy, but then maybe in a year or two, it kind of starts to fade out and you realize you're not getting as many sales on it. It's probably because something else has taken its place in popularity. So instead of letting your shop just die out with your best-selling product, pivot, make a change, do some research and figure out what new thing is on the rise and figure out what product you can come up with to meet that demand. It's not always fun, but we have to be willing to always be flexible, always willing to change and pivot according to the current trends and what is actually selling. Okay, friends, I hope that provided some awesome value for you getting started on Etsy. If it did, would you hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel? Make sure to also hit your little notification bell right beside that subscribe button to turn on your notifications so you won't ever miss a new video. And don't forget to find the link below to go check out Taylor Brands and use that 30% off code KateHayes30. If you really are a true Etsy beginner and you just want like a step-by-step walkthrough and guide of setting up your Etsy shop and navigating your dashboard, everything you need to know right in the beginning, I do have a 2-part series where I just go through, share my screen, and walk through every step with you. So if you're interested in that, just click on the square that's on the screen right now, and then I'll take you over to that first video in the series. Bye, friends.